Good evening, everyone. In this video, we will be talking about the general guidelines for use case relationships. We have already discussed about use case relationships. Now we will be discussing about the guidelines for them. Don't use use case relationship to the extreme, and don't go into the level of programming. We already have discussed. Okay, so use cases are never intended for formal mechanisms. Okay, and they are not directly. You should not be going into the programming level. Okay, at the time. So they are mainly intended to clarify the requirements, okay, more or less. Okay, so if you put the just document the requirements, we have already discussed that. Okay, so if you just list the documents, you may be missing the certain features like alternate things, exceptions, etc. Like you will be missing. So use cases, since they will be documenting all the things, so we have already discussed. So the preconditions, the post conditions, the main so the steps which are actually taking place. Okay, what are the alternate mechanisms? Okay, so all the things like we will be discussing as part of the use case. Once you document everything, you will not be missing any requirements. That's the basic idea. Okay, so use cases, okay, use to the level you can understand the system better, but don't really go to the level where you are worried about the programming aspects of them. Okay, now let us look at the sort of guidelines for each and every of the subclass use case relationships. Okay, so in terms of generalization is concerned, if a use case basically comes in several variations, model the common behavior with an abstract use case. So we have already seen the abstract classes. Okay, so the problem is like then abstract classes, like you cannot initialize them. Okay, the same way like if a use case is an abstract, like so basically like you cannot use it for a specific purpose, but then like their children with this sort of generalization relation, okay, which are specializations of these things, specialize each of these variations. Okay, so into these child use cases, and you can actually use one of the child use cases in the system. Okay, so that's the basic idea. We have already discussed this. Okay. Do not generalize to share a common behavior fragment. Okay, so for this one, like we have this include relationship, okay, which can be used for this purpose. Okay. So let us look at the guidelines for the inclusion relationship. Okay. If a use case includes a well-documented behavior, well-defined behavior fragment, okay, and it is also being used in other situations, then it is better to define a use case for that behavior fragment and include it in the original use case. This is the thing which we have seen in the earlier examples in the last video, like say for example this validating the password, okay, which you have to do for entering the system in the stockbroker system. We have already seen. So for logging into the system, or like for making any of the trade, okay. So every time like we had to have the same functionality, okay, behavior fragment should be there. So then have that one as that particular use case, and then like add in include relationship, okay. So in every other use case, if you want to use it, have that one included, okay. But think this one, included use case is a meaningful activity, but not an end in itself. Okay, so validating a password is purposeful. Okay, so it is useful for the user. Okay, but it has a purpose only within a broader context. Okay, validating a password is relevant only if you are logging into the system, or like say for example you are making that particular trade. Okay, so that buying or selling of the shares. Okay. Or else like just validating the password will have no meaning. Okay. In fact, it is a meaningful activity, but it is not like it's not full. Okay, so just that one you will not be using anywhere. Okay, that's about the inclusion relationship. Now regarding the extension relationship, if you can define a meaningful use case with optional features, okay, so the optional features are additional features. Okay, the way like we have earlier seen, like in the hospital. Okay, say for example, if there are further if the patient needs further visits, okay, we are deferring the payment. So that is like the original is the payment, okay, pay the bill which you have to do, and then like that is the extension. Okay, if that is the case, if you can define a meaningful use case with optional features, then model the base behavior as a use case and add features with the extended relationship. Okay, this sort of extension relations actually allows you to basically test and debug the system without the extensions actually. So you can test the base system only, and then like later you can actually add the extensions, and then you can still test and debug the system, complete system. Okay. So in a modular way, like you can actually debug the system. Okay, that is one advantage of having this sort of use case extensions. Okay, at the same time, like use this sort of extension relationship. Okay, extend relationship is very useful when a system might be deployed in different configurations. Okay, think about most of the software like which we are getting today, open source software, we get free. Okay, most of the software is free today. But then, like say for example, there will also be a commercial or like licensed versions and extensions which will have additional features. Okay, which are being provided only for the people who actually pay for them. Okay, say for example, use think about your Gmail. Gmail basically is free for you, and then like it basically provides you certain functionality. But there will be additional functionalities and then certain features which you will not be getting, probably more storage or something like that. Okay, which will be for the sort of I mean like the users who basically pay for them. Okay. Similarly, the Star UML which I am using, okay, so it's a free version. But then like if I would have paid for it and then like I will have a license for it, I can have better features, more features. Okay, that's the basic idea. In such cases, like it is better to use this sort of extension relationship. Okay, the basic features we will be defining in the primary use cases. The extension features will be in this sort of extended use cases. So when you think in terms of both inclusion and extended relationship, both actually factor behavior into smaller pieces. That's clear. Okay, so bigger use cases, okay, they will make it into smaller pieces. Okay, for a bigger system, like we are actually going with these relationships because like there can be several modular use cases which should basically contribute to the complete system. Okay, but even though both of them make the behavior into smaller pieces, include relationship actually implies that the included behavior is a necessary part of the system. Even though it is not executed every time, it is a very important uh, part of the system. The extended relationship actually implies that the system without the added behavior is still a meaningful one. That's the basic difference between the two. Okay. So that's about the sort of guidelines for use case relationships. Okay. So we are in chapter 8 of this object-oriented modeling and design with UML is concerned. Okay, this book. Michael Blaha and James Rumbaugh. Thank you very much for your attention.